into it. Fighting temptation. Fighting temptation. Now, I want to let you know automatically that temptation is already happening. You are already in the midst of temptation. It might even be the point that you might be tempted to fall asleep on me because you had a rough night last night, maybe. The temptation may be, well, PC ain't preaching, so I really can just tune on out because this young man don't know me and my story. So I know that there might be a lot of things that might be barring you from listening to what God has to say in this text. But I pray that in this moment that the Holy Spirit would seal you and allow for your attention to be placed on the text today and not on me. So there's a story, and there's a man by the name of John Sullivan. And John Sullivan is best known as the Boston Strong Boy. And he was recognized as the first heavyweight champion of gloved boxing in the late 1800s. And he's generally recognized as the last heavyweight champion of bare knuckle boxing. Yeah, like he was going with his fist, yeah. So Sullivan was asked by a reporter why he had never given to taking boxing lessons. And Sullivan said, well, son, I tried it once, but it didn't work out so well. See, there was a husky young man who took one lesson from me, and he went home a little worse for the wear. And when he came around for his second lesson, he said, well, Mr. Sullivan, it was my idea to learn enough about boxing from you to be able to lick a certain young man who I've had it in for and who's had it in for me a long time. But I've changed my mind. He says, if it's all the same to you, Mr. Sullivan, I'll send this young gentleman your way so that he can take the rest of my lessons for me because I don't think I can take it. So Greater Mount Zion, what I'm really trying to say here is I pray today that we change our minds about the way we've been currently fighting the enemy. We, like this young man, have a professional champion in our corner who's provided us with one lesson in this text. And Jesus is more than capable of handling and helping us finish the fight that we start today. Now, whether we know it or not, we're in the fight for our lives. If we claim Jesus as our personal Lord and Savior, then we've got to get ready for a fight to the finish because the enemy has his sights set on you and I, and he intends to knock us down and to keep us bound by any means necessary and attack everything that we hold dear. Now, I know to many of you this does not sound as a coincidence to you. You've heard this before because many of us have been Sunday school taught. We've gone to midweek service. We've been to revivals. We've been to BTU, VBS, GMZ, and COG to the point that we might even say OMG. And all of those things have been preparation for the war that either we're in or about to start. So now, saints, I don't want you to get worried because I did my homework. So I know who I'm talking to today. And that is everybody. Everybody, yes, everybody, every single person in the room. And the reason why I know this is because Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So I know I'm in the house today because we are all in this together, whether we want to face it or not. Paul even goes even further to say in Romans chapter 7, verse 21 through 23, although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. And now, if that's a little bit too old school, there was a psalmist by the name of John Legend, and I love him. And he actually had his take on sin. He actually said, second time leads to the third, the fifth, the seventh time. And then after all of that, he got to the chorus and he said, oh, I'm doing it again. He said it like that. Now, if John in R&B can figure out there's something to this sin thing and we can't really, it's something that we got to get a hold to, then I know that I'm in the house. John said it like that. So let's say it like this. We've been in a great series with Pastor Clark. He has been phenomenally talking to us about worship and what that looks like, what happens when a man does so. He's also talked about what our public display of affection towards him looks like. So much so in an unashamed way that we can even do it in our underwear. Yet, this is what I've experienced, and I don't know, maybe you have too. Watch this. It becomes increasingly difficult to worship God openly when I'm bound and ashamed of the things that I do privately. And today, I'm calling us out of our metaphorical corners because the bell has sounded, and it's time to get back in the ring. So I want you to repeat after me. Say, I'm a fighter. Say it a little bit better, but say it with some conviction and with some authority. Say, I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. I want you to declare that afresh every time that the devil tries to attack you. Every time that he tries to tell you you are not a child of the King. When he tries to tell you that you can't do any better than what you've already been trying to do. When he tries to say, well, you've gone about as far as you can, you might as well quit. I want you to declare in a fresh and a real way, I'm a fighter. So say it one more time. Say, I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. I want you to remember that. The Bible declares that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So today I want you to reach down within yourself and access what you already have. See, the good news today, my brothers and sisters, is that we are in a fixed fight. Turn to your neighbor and say, we're in a fixed fight. Tell your other neighbor we've already won. And we can be assured of the win because Jesus Christ has already won the battle for us a long time ago on Calvary. Yet, the one thing I want to question to you and pose to you today is, yeah, we've already won, but how do you want to win? We've already won the battle, but how do you want to win? Do you want to be chosen as a winner by judge's decision because Jesus is on the panel? Or do we want to win by knockout? And I believe that everyone under the sound of my voice has a knockout waiting to be delivered. Every single one of you, I know you might be tired. I know you might be frustrated with the cards that you've been dealt, or that you might be frustrated in this ring of a world, but you do have a knockout awaiting to be given. So I believe that you have the power. We just got to access it today. So one thing that I want you to be able to say to Satan after today is that, yeah, you might have hit me with a couple of your best shots, but you better be real creative the next time that you come at me because you won't get me the same way twice. So in the text, we find Jesus embarking on the fight for our lives. And he encounters the devil's temptation on the onset of his ministry, and he does not sin. He's led into the wilderness, we find, and the devil reveals all of his cards, and Jesus wins every hand. And how does he do it? Y'all are asking really good questions this afternoon. He does it in a way that implies a strategy. Somebody say strategy. Jesus had a strategy. And today, this afternoon, I want to reveal to you what he's revealed to me with regards to winning the fight for our lives. Anybody want to be set free today? Okay. Anybody already set free today? Well, I'm going to need you to help me preach this thing, and I need you to have a couple of amens in your pocket. Go on ahead and get them out, because I'm going to be asking for them in a minute. So, anybody interested today on a strategy of being set free? Yes. Well, come on then. Okay, first, when fighting for our lives, we must expect countless temptations. Say expect. Countless temptation. See, in verse 1, it says that Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. So we see that it was by God's design and plan that Jesus be tempted in the wilderness. See, the wilderness is defined in the text here as a desert. It's defined as an unknown place, an undomesticated place, a place that is alien to human purposes. It's not a place where things grow, but it is a place where we mature. It's not a place where we rest, but it is a place that we have to go to and go through to get to our final destination. The wilderness is a place where we ask the question oftentimes, well, what do I do now? And we see that Jesus has been in this place fasting for 40 days and for 40 nights. That's a long time, ain't it? It is a long time. And he's fasting in this place. He's hungry, and then Satan comes. Notice the order. He's been fasting for a real long time. He gets hungry, as Simone says. He gets hungry. And then Satan comes. Now, we must realize that the devil will not attack us well within our strength. He'll wait at a time of our weakness. And anytime we intend to do the will of the God, the tempter will come. You might as well go on ahead and expect it. And I like in Matthew that he calls, watch the text here, he calls the tempter, tempter. He doesn't call him Satan. He doesn't call him the devil. He doesn't call him the evil one, but he calls him tempter. And see, normally when we think of the devil, we picture him as a pitchfork, red tail having, ugly monster of a being. And that's not the kind who will arrive at a place where I was doing real good until she called me at about 11:45 p.m. saying that I got a red box. Why don't you just come over so we can watch a movie? We don't call him that. We don't think of him at a place where maybe you might say, well, we already living together. Why we got to get married? I mean, you got the best thing anyway right here in front of you. We don't see the tempter, or we don't see Satan as, well, it's just the internet. It's not a real physical encounter, so it really shouldn't count against me, right? Or in the form of, I know they're not my spouse, but they're such a good listener. And I mean, it seems like they understand exactly how I feel. Well, we might even get to the point where we say, well, God, why does this have to be happening in my ignorant family? Or why I always got to be the one that's the sickest? Or why am I having to lose my job in a recession? Or why can't I seem to find a job in a recession? Or why does it seem like I have more month than money? Or why does it seem like my kids are in jail and everybody else is doing fine? Why does it seem like I'm the only person without a man? Why does it seem like I'm the only person by myself? God, it seems like you are up there with a magnifying glass, putting it over me on the hot sun, and you burning me alive. God, why does it have to be me? Am I the only one in here struggling? Am I the only one in here that's got to fight? Am I the only one in here that's dealing with a couple of things? And the enemy, in the midst of what we are going through, will slip right on in. And in the midst of our frustration, in the midst of our depression and our desolation, he'll say, well, I'm right here. Why don't you just go on ahead and give up? God cares nothing about you. God doesn't want to see you actually in a good position. Look at where you are now. So we might as well expect temptation at our weakest point, because the devil reasons that if we can't stand up for something, we'll go ahead and fall for anything. Now, not only must we expect countless temptation, but when we're fighting for our lives, we must evaluate our cravings. We've got to evaluate our cravings. I'm all in the Bible, I promise you. We've got to evaluate our cravings. And in order to prepare for the attacks of the enemy, we must know that he's got some things that he might use. Now, come on now. You know you. I'm going to sit right there. You know you. We know what our vices are. We know what we're holding on to. We know the things in our metaphorical closets that you really don't want nobody else to know, but it's going on. So when we are there, we've got to watch it, because the enemy has been watching us all along. And he's been waiting for an opportunity to tempt us. Now see, Jesus, he hungered for something, and the devil sought to meet it by a means that God did not intend. But I got a question for you today. What drives hunger? What drives our hunger? And see, I've discovered that health and science research says that a particular food craving might point to something beneficially lacking in our diets. I'm going somewhere if you'll follow with me. I believe that the same is true in our moral lives as well. If we're spending far too much time with old girl and old dude, then that might mean or indicate that there is a lack of genuine platonic friendships in our lives. If we can't complete one sentence without cussing, then it might indicate that there was a lack of a stronger vocabulary or the lack of quality company. If you dropping bombs left and right, then you on the same plane, I would guarantee, as somebody else dropping bombs, and you just as liable as that person that's dropping them bombs. So if you dropping bombs, I'm gonna let you know now, be careful of the company that you keep. And if you remain quiet, I guarantee you, if you just be quiet with them, you're gonna see that they're gonna be dropping bombs too, and you'll be like, oh, I didn't know. I'm just letting you know now. Okay, and maybe if you constantly feel like you need to lie, Y'all got some of them friends that just everything that come out of their mouth, you already know they about to lie. You know it. When they come into your presence, you go, oh, here they go. Let's think about what creative do you have to say today? Who did you meet that we know you didn't even possibly, you're not even in the same state as them, but who came over to your house? Yeah. And see, if that's the case, that would probably indicate that there is a lack of anything worthwhile to say. Most of the time when people lie, it's because they really ain't got nothing to say. So that's a word for somebody. If you lying, just be quiet in the presence of the Lord. Just be quiet in the presence of the Lord. Allow for him to minister to your heart and to your mouth and to your mouth. So Marilyn Robinson, she says it like this, and I want you to catch this. She says, to crave and to have are as alike as a thing and its shadow. Woo. I'm going to say that again because I thought it was cold crazy when I read it. To crave and to have are as alike as a thing and its shadow. So the question that I have for us this afternoon is, can you see your shadow? What are you craving that is hurting your body? Now see, when I was in college, I used to often go to the grocery store, and it seemed like no matter what, I'd always go when I was hungry. Anybody, can y'all bear witness to that? Anytime I was going to the grocery store, didn't matter if it was in the morning, didn't matter if it was in the afternoon or in the evening, I would be hungry. And then I would end up going to the grocery store. And it would seem like I'd literally go down every aisle. Y'all ever been there? You hungry and you going down every aisle. Ooh, that look good. Ooh, that look good. I hadn't had that in a really long time. That smell, what is that smell? And you go in the other aisles that you ain't never been down. You don't even eat none of the food over there, but you just so happen to go down that aisle. Well, yeah, I'd go down every aisle, and it would seem like my cart would just get heavier and heavier. Anybody ever struggle with a buggy? Y'all ever struggle with a buggy? You trying to go around the corner, and it's like, oh, Lord. And then everybody looking at you like, look at how much she got in her buggy. Look at that. Look at that. And some of y'all laughing too hard because y'all be talking about folks at the supermarket. Like, why they got 3 buggies? Well, I wasn't a 3-buggy having person, but it would be really hard for me to maneuver in the grocery store, especially when I was hungry. And really, when I would look at my cart once I got to the checkout, it'd probably be stuff in there that I know I really didn't need, and I really didn't want, but I physically desired it. I believe the same is true with respect to temporary moral fixes. Hear me out. This is the principle. When what I believe I want and need is not met in the right way beforehand, I make decisions that impair my ability to maneuver through life easily. And I end up with something, watch this, or someone that I didn't really need and that I really didn't want. Jesus says it in verse 4, man does not live by bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Jesus was explaining to Satan that he was on a spiritual mission, basically, and that he would not jeopardize that by satisfying a material need. And see, we must remember that we are more than physical. Why don't you turn to your neighbor and say, I'm more than meets the eye. And the devil would have us believe that bread is all we need. And Jesus was declaring afresh that he'd rather be hungry pursuing the will of God rather than being well fed outside of the will of God.